Life has a peculiar way of teaching us. The more we attempt to dictate every minute detail, the results, the timing, how others react, the more exhausted and frustrated we become. We meticulously plan our lives, believing that relentless effort, constant pushing, and unwavering control will eventually make everything fall into place. But what if the opposite were true? What if, the moment you cease forcing, stop grasping, and start trusting, everything began to flow effortlessly? This isn't about surrender. It's about discerning where your true power resides. Centuries ago, the Stoics perfected this philosophy. Marcus Aurelius emphasized the significance of embracing what unfolds naturally and conserving energy by not contending with reality. He understood that struggling against uncontrollable forces only leads to suffering. The true battle is internal, training your mind to focus on what you can influence and releasing the rest. This is precisely what we'll explore today. A mindset shift that can revolutionize your approach to success, relationships, and even your inner peace. If you're perpetually stressed, feeling like your efforts are futile, there's a reason. You might be clutching too tightly to things never meant for your control. This isn't merely another self-improvement discussion. It's about something profound. Cultivating true confidence to navigate life with serenity and conviction, rather than anxiety and frustration. And believe me, by the end of this video, you'll possess a radically different perspective on achieving your desires without desperate pursuit. Before we begin, a small free favor. If you appreciate our work, please hit the subscribe button. It takes less than a second, but helps us reach more people who need this content. Let's dive in. We dedicate so much of our lives to fixating on outcomes, awaiting that job offer, hoping a relationship succeeds, agonizing over whether our efforts will pay off. We convince ourselves that with just a bit more work, a little more push, we can compel things to go our way. But what happens? The more we cling to a specific result, the more anxious we become. The process loses its fulfillment, and our happiness becomes entirely contingent on something we cannot fully command. This is our self-imposed trap. The Stoics grasped this profoundly. Epictetus taught that our suffering stems not from events themselves, but from our attachment to desired outcomes. He advised, do not seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Rather, wish that what happens as it should, and you will be happy. In essence, instead of tying your happiness to a particular outcome, concentrate on the process. Focus on what you can control, your actions, your discipline, your mindset. Let go of everything else. Consider an artist painting a masterpiece. If they obsess over perfecting every brushstroke, worrying about how critics will judge their work, they'll never achieve a creative flow. But when they detach from the final result and simply immerse themselves in the act of painting, something remarkable occurs. They become fully present. The work becomes effortless, and ironically, that's when their finest art is created. This principle extends to all facets of life: work, relationships, personal growth. When you stop fixating on how things must unfold, you liberate yourself to enjoy the journey. This is particularly true in relationships. Have you observed someone trying too hard to impress another person? Their energy feels needy, desperate, almost forced. And what happens? It repels people. Conversely, when someone is confident, at ease with themselves, and not consumed by a specific outcome, they naturally attract others. Why? Because they aren't driven by fear. They trust that whatever is meant to happen will happen. That's the power of detachment. Now, let's discuss success. So many believe that failing to achieve a specific goal by a certain time signifies failure. They treat life like a rigid checklist. Graduate by this age, earn this much money, marry, reach this level of success. If things deviate from the plan, they spiral into self-doubt. But here's the reality. Success is not a linear path. It's replete with twists, setbacks, and unforeseen opportunities. If you're overly attached to one outcome, you might miss an even better one that life is presenting. Take a moment and ask yourself, what am I clinging to too tightly? What goal, expectation, or outcome is causing me stress? Now imagine what would happen if you released that grip, not giving up, but trusting that whatever transpires, you'll be okay. That's detachment. It doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop needing things to go a certain way to feel peaceful. So, how do you practice this in daily life? First, consistently remind yourself that outcomes are beyond your control. Your effort, discipline, and mindset are all you can manage. Second, reframe your thinking. Instead of, "I need this to happen," shift to, "I trust that whatever happens will contribute to my growth." Finally, focus on the present moment. The more you immerse yourself in the now, the less sway the future holds over you. Life constantly presents challenges. Some days, everything flows effortlessly. Other days, it feels like the world conspires against you. The distinction between those who crumble under pressure and those who thrive isn't luck. It's mindset. Your thoughts shape your experience of life, and if you don't learn to master your mind will master you. You cannot always control external events, the economy, other people's actions, unexpected obstacles, but you can control your response. That's where true power lies. When you transition from reacting to responding, everything transforms. Psychologist William James, often considered the father of modern psychology, once stated, "The greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another." This is precisely what the Stoics taught. You don't have to believe every thought that enters your mind. You don't have to let every difficult moment define you. Instead, you can train yourself to reframe situations, to step back and gain a fresh perspective. Here's another example. Imagine you're enduring a difficult period at work. You keep making mistakes, your boss is pressuring you, and you feel like a failure. One approach is to think, "I'm terrible at this. I'll never improve. Maybe I'm just not good enough." That's a fixed mindset, and it traps you in self-doubt. But what if you altered that thought? What if instead you said, "I'm learning. Every mistake is teaching me something. The pressure I'm feeling is helping me grow." That's a growth mindset, and it enables you to transform struggles into opportunities. The Stoics believed every challenge is an opportunity to cultivate virtue, patience, resilience, wisdom. Seneca famously said, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body." This means every struggle, every setback, every moment of frustration is actually training you to be stronger. Think of it like weightlifting. If you never push yourself, you never build strength. The same applies to your mind. However, let's be honest, mastering your mindset isn't an overnight achievement. It requires daily practice, a simple starting point. Pay attention to your inner dialogue. Are you constantly feeding yourself thoughts of fear, doubt, and negativity? Or are you training yourself to identify opportunities, to reframe situations, to remain calm amidst uncertainty? Your mind is like a garden. What you plant is what grows. If you sow seeds of fear and anxiety, that's what will proliferate. But if you plant seeds of strength, clarity, and resilience, those will flourish instead. Another way to strengthen your mindset: train yourself to stay in the present. Much stress arises from obsessing over the past or worrying about the future. But the only thing you can ever control is this moment, right now. The next time you feel overwhelmed, ask yourself, what can I do right now that will move me forward? That single question can snap you out of panic and recenter you on what truly matters. Patience is one of the most challenging virtues to practice, especially when striving for something important. You've exerted effort, done everything correctly, yet nothing seems to be happening. It's frustrating, isn't it? The world tells us success should be swift, that if we don't see instant results, we must be doing something wrong. But the truth is, life doesn't operate on our timetable. It moves to its own rhythm, and attempting to rush the process often leads to disappointment. The Stoics grasped this profoundly. Epictetus remarked, "No great thing is created suddenly." Consider that. Anything truly valuable, wisdom, strength, success, takes time to develop. Just as you cannot force a tree to grow faster by tugging on its branches, you cannot force life to grant you what you desire before the opportune moment. There is an order to things, and when you learn to trust that timing, you free yourself from immense, unnecessary stress. Imagine a young artist dreaming of renown. They toil tirelessly, pouring their heart into their craft, yet recognition eludes them. At this juncture, they have two options: succumb to frustration, lose faith, and abandon their pursuit, or trust that every brushstroke, every piece of work, is preparing them for something greater, even if currently unseen. Those who trust the process persist, and eventually they find themselves precisely where they are meant to be. We live in a culture of instant gratification. Fast food, fast information, fast success. We've been conditioned to believe that if something isn't quick, it's not worth the wait. But some things demand time: relationships, personal growth, mastering a skill. All require patience. Socrates once said, "To do is to be." This implies that growth resides in the process, not solely the outcome. If you're perpetually fixated on when something will happen, you miss out on who you are becoming along the way. But here's the tricky part. How do you remain patient when it feels like nothing is happening? The Stoics would advise, focus on what's in your control. You cannot control the timing, but you can control your actions. You can keep showing up, keep putting in the work, keep growing as a person. And most importantly, you can trust that if something is meant for you, it will arrive, not a second too early or too late. One of Stoicism's greatest lessons is the power of acceptance. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together." Instead of resisting life's timing, learn to embrace it. If things aren't happening as quickly as you desire, perhaps it's because you're still evolving into the person ready for them. Have you ever noticed that when you desperately chase something, it seems to recede further away? Whether it's a job, a relationship, or even success, the more frantic and needy your energy, the more things seem to slip through your fingers. It's almost as if the universe senses desperation and responds by withdrawing. But when you act with purpose, with calm confidence, everything begins to align naturally. There's a potent distinction between chasing and attracting. The Stoics understood this well. Epictetus once said, "First say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do." In other words, before you act, be clear about why you're acting. Desperate action stems from fear: fear of missing out, fear of failure, fear of not being enough. But purposeful action originates from a place of clarity and strength. When you know who you are and what you stand for, your actions become more deliberate, more grounded. Let's consider an example. Imagine two individuals seeking a job. The first is desperate. They apply everywhere, for jobs they don't even want, panicking with every rejection. Their energy is scattered, anxious, and uncertain. The second person, however, is focused. They know their strengths. They meticulously craft meaningful applications, and they prepare without obsessing over immediate results. Who do you think is more likely to be hired? The one who is calm, confident, and strategic, not the one acting from fear. This applies to relationships too. If you enter a relationship out of desperation, fearing loneliness, or seeking validation, it often leads to disappointment. But when you approach relationships with self-respect and confidence, you attract healthier, more fulfilling connections. People are drawn to those who are secure in themselves, not those grasping for attention. Aristotle spoke of eudaimonia, a state of living with purpose and fulfillment. He believed true happiness comes not from chasing external things, but from aligning your actions with your virtues and values. Act with wisdom, integrity, and purpose, and let the outcomes take care of themselves. When you move with intention rather than panic, you start making better decisions. You stop wasting time on things that don't align with your true goals. Think of a seasoned chess player versus a beginner. The beginner reacts impulsively, making moves out of fear and uncertainty. The expert, however, plays with patience, seeing the bigger picture, making deliberate choices. Life operates similarly. If you're constantly reacting to fear, you'll make choices that lead to more chaos. But if you take a step back, act with clarity, and trust the process, you move closer to the life you truly desire. So, how do you shift from acting out of desperation to acting with purpose? First, clarify your why. Ask yourself, am I doing this because I genuinely want it or because I'm afraid of not having it? Second, slow down. Desperation rushes. Purpose moves with patience. Instead of making fear-driven decisions, allow yourself time to reflect and choose wisely. And finally, trust yourself. You don't need to force things into place. When you act with confidence and alignment, opportunities naturally emerge. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Much desperation stems from imagined fears. What if I don't succeed? What if I fail? But the truth is, you are stronger than you think, and you don't need to scramble for what's meant for you. Act with purpose, move with confidence, and observe how life begins to align in your favor. Have you ever felt exhausted from trying to control everything? You plan, you push, you strategize, but somehow life still doesn't unfold as you expect. It's frustrating, isn't it? You try to make people behave a certain way, force circumstances into place, and predict every possible outcome, only to find yourself more stressed and less in control than ever. The tighter you grip, the more things slip through your fingers. But here's the paradox. The moment you let go, life begins to work in your favor. The Stoics grasped this profoundly. Epictetus said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." Consider that. True freedom doesn't arise from controlling everything around you. It comes from releasing the need to control. The more energy you expend trying to manage things that aren't yours to manage, other people's opinions, the future, the past, the more you deplete yourself. But when you shift your focus to what you can control, your thoughts, your actions, your responses, you reclaim your power. Take relationships, for example. Have you ever tried to change someone? Perhaps you wanted a friend, a partner, or a family member to behave differently, to be more understanding, more supportive, more aligned with your expectations. But no matter how hard you tried, they remained the same. That's because people are not ours to control. We can communicate, we can set boundaries, we can choose who we allow in our lives, but we cannot force someone to change. When you release that need, you free yourself from frustration and allow relationships to unfold naturally. The same applies to success. So many believe that pushing harder will accelerate their goal achievement, but there's a distinction between effort and control. You absolutely should work towards your goals, but obsessing over every tiny detail, stressing about timing, and fearing failure only create resistance. Seneca once said, "Fate leads the willing and drags along the reluctant." In other words, when you fight against the natural flow of life, you create unnecessary struggle. But when you trust the process and focus on what's in your power, things unfold with much greater ease. Imagine you're preparing for an important interview. You've done the research, practiced, and you're ready. But instead of trusting in your preparation, you start overthinking. What if they ask a question I don't know? What if I mess up? What if I don't get the job? Now your energy shifts from confidence to anxiety. You walk into the interview nervous, tense, and second-guessing yourself. That need for control is actually making you perform worse. But if you take a deep breath, remind yourself you've done the work, and let go of the outcome, you walk in relaxed, present, and much more likely to succeed. So, how do you start letting go of control? First, recognize what is and isn't within your power. The Stoics believed in the dichotomy of control. There are things we can influence and things we cannot. Wasting energy on the uncontrollable only leads to frustration. Second, practice acceptance. Life won't always go according to plan, but that doesn't mean it's going wrong. Sometimes detours lead to better destinations. And finally, build trust. Not just in life, but in yourself. Trust that you can handle whatever comes, even if it's not what you expected. Have you ever noticed that some people seem to attract success, opportunities, and even happiness effortlessly? It's not that they possess some secret advantage. It's their mindset. The way they think, carry themselves, and perceive the world creates a reality where abundance flows to them naturally. Conversely, people who constantly focus on what they Lack seem to struggle endlessly, no matter how hard they work. It's not about luck. It's about the energy you bring into your life. The Stoics understood this long before modern psychology confirmed it. Epictetus said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." True abundance isn't about hoarding money, accumulating achievements, or endlessly chasing more. It's about realizing you already possess everything you need for a fulfilled life. When you stop operating from a mindset of scarcity, believing you never have enough, you create space for more to come to you naturally. Imagine two people entering the same room. One focuses on everything they lack. They compare themselves to others, feel inadequate, and believe success is perpetually out of reach. Their energy is heavy, their words filled with doubt, and they unknowingly repel opportunities. The second person enters with the belief that they have enough knowledge, enough skills, enough opportunities ahead. They engage confidently, build connections naturally, and leave with new possibilities. The only difference: one lived in scarcity, the other in abundance. And it's not just about money or success. It applies to relationships, happiness, and even time. If you believe there's never enough love, never enough time, never enough good people in the world, then your mind will perpetually seek proof of that belief. But if you shift your focus, you'll start seeing opportunities everywhere. You'll recognize the kindness in others, the possibilities in each moment, and the blessings already present in your life. Psychologist William James once said, "The greatest discovery of my generation is that a human being can alter his life by altering his attitudes." If you constantly feel something is missing, your brain will fixate on that lack. But if you train your mind to see abundance, if you practice gratitude, confidence, and trust in life, you begin to shift your entire reality. It's not magic, it's perception. What you focus on grows. Consider a musician who approaches their career with a scarcity mindset. They constantly worry about a lack of opportunities, the industry's competitiveness, and their inability to succeed. Every rejection feels like validation of their fears. Consequently, they play it safe, hesitate to take risks, and miss out on potential breakthroughs. Now imagine another musician who believes in abundance. They view every rejection as redirection, every challenge as an opportunity to improve. They take more risks, connect with more people, and eventually find success, not because they were luckier, but because they embodied abundance instead of fear. So, how do you start embodying abundance in your own life? First, begin with gratitude. Instead of focusing on what's absent, focus on what's already present. When you appreciate what you have, you attract more of it. Second, act as if you already have enough. Move through life with confidence, knowing that opportunities are everywhere. And finally, release attachment. Trust that what's meant for you will arrive, not through force, but through alignment with your actions and beliefs. Have you ever found yourself fixating on a goal, pushing harder and harder, only to feel like you're running in circles? You do everything right, follow every step, yet the results don't appear as quickly as you desire. It's frustrating, isn't it? We've been taught that success is entirely about effort, about never stopping, never letting go. But here's what most people overlook. There's a distinction between aligned action and desperate action. Sometimes the true key to progress is knowing when to act and when to step back. The Stoics possessed a profound understanding of this. Seneca once said, "Effort and patience will achieve more than force and anxiety." We live in a culture that glorifies the grind, the notion that if you just work hard enough, things have to go your way. But genuine success isn't about blind effort. It's about taking the right steps, remaining open to opportunity, and then allowing life to unfold. The problem with forcing things is that it creates resistance. It's like pulling at a knot. The harder you yank, the tighter it becomes. Imagine you're trying to fall asleep. You can't force yourself to sleep, can you? The more you try, the more restless you become. But the moment you relax, let go, and trust that sleep will come, it happens naturally. The same holds true for success, relationships, and even personal growth. You have to take action, yes, but you also have to trust the process. Think of a farmer planting seeds. They prepare the soil, sow the seeds, water them, and ensure they receive adequate sunlight. But after that, they don't dig up the seeds daily, demanding faster growth. They trust that in time, the crops will flourish. If they tried to rush the process, they'd only damage what they planted. Life operates in the same way. You take action, you do your part, but then you have to trust that things will develop at their own pace. This applies to every aspect of life. Take relationships, for example. Have you ever encountered someone who tried too hard? Perhaps they were overly eager, texting excessively, always needing reassurance. Their energy felt heavy, almost desperate. But then there's the person who is calm, confident, who shows interest, but also provides space. They naturally attract others because they aren't forcing anything. That's what happens when you take aligned action and let go. You create space for things to flow instead of suffocating them. Or consider your career. Perhaps you've been hustling, trying to force every opportunity, but nothing seems to be progressing. Now, what if instead of panicking, you trusted that your work was sufficient? What if you focused on excelling at what you do, building meaningful connections, and allowing the right doors to open when they're meant to? This doesn't mean you become passive. It means you stop trying to control every outcome. You take smart, purposeful action, and then trust that what's meant for you will come. Marcus Aurelius, in Meditations, wrote, "Do what you must, and let what happens, happen." This is the core of aligned action. You focus on what's in your control, your efforts, your discipline, your mindset. But you don't obsess over the results. Because the truth is, no matter how much you plan, no matter how hard you push, there will always be things outside your control. And the more you resist that truth, the more stressed and frustrated you become. So, how do you actually practice this in your daily life? First, clearly define your goal and take the necessary steps. Prepare, train, learn, do your part. Second, let go of the need to control when and how the results appear. Accept that timing isn't always up to you. And third, trust in your own resilience. Even if things don't unfold exactly as you planned, you'll adapt, you'll grow, and you'll discover new opportunities along the way. Ultimately, life isn't about controlling every outcome. It's about mastering yourself. The moment you shift your focus from chasing to aligning, from forcing to flowing, everything begins to fall into place. The Stoics recognized this truth centuries ago, and now it's yours to apply. So, take a deep breath, trust the process, and remember, real power comes from within. If this video resonated with you, there's another on the screen now that will delve even deeper into Stoic wisdom. Click on it and continue learning. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe so you never miss a new insight. Thanks for being a part of Stoic Journal. I'll see you in the next one. This is exactly what the Stoics taught.